everyone, and welcome to Super Podcast Action Committee episode 154. We have a lot of fun, silly-willy topics to talk about today. There was a survey that came out that talked about teens and their relationship with social media and video games, Nintendo firing an employee after a podcast appearance, Peter Moore saying that on-disc DLC is nothing but a conspiracy theory, and the ESL has revealed its drug testing policies, but we're not going to talk about a damn one of those today because it's SPJ AirPlay Day. Hooray!
Yay!
So with me is Zachary Knight. Hello, Zachary.
Hello, everybody.
Managing editor of GamePolitics, James Fudge. Hello, James.
Heyo.
And some guy named Brad. Hi, Brad.
Hey, everyone.
This is with us is Brad Glasgow, who wrote an article that appeared on our site this week called "Challenge Accepted: Interviewing an Internet Hashtag." So we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, how are you all?
Oh, well, I'm good. I beat Uncharted today, which is totally exciting. Finally, yes, it took me months to do, and I get to the end, and it's like trophy unlocked or a trophy earned or whatever. Beat the game easy, and I'm like, that was easy. Apparently, I suck, but for in my defense, I was totally not expecting it to become a zombie shooter there towards the end, but that's what happened.
Spoilers. I haven't played it yet.
Sorry, spoilers, everybody, for what, an 8-year-old game now? 10-year-old game?
I
forget when it came out.
PS3 game. It's not that. Well, the PS3 did come out in '96, so it's been a while.
So let's see, Uncharted. When did that come out? I forget. Yeah, 2007. So yeah,
No,
yeah, 8-year-old game. So yeah.
Well, congrats there. Brad, you a gamer?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
What you been playing?
Right now I've been playing Reddit.
Reddit?
Yeah, that's the Reddit game. That is a good
That
game.
is the game a lot of the time.
I play Team Fortress 2 quite a bit.
Did you win Reddit?
No one wins. The only way to win is not to play.
There you go. I beat Child of Light, which is an RPG from Ubisoft that I was talking about last week, I think, or the week before. I sat down last night to play some more of it and didn't realize I was about 40 minutes to the end of the game. It's like final boss, final form, credits. I'm like, oh, we're done. Oh. I've got other things to play. It's all right, but so yeah, great game. I recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Although one thing I do want to talk about is last week I showed off my new stripper pole, and I worked on it a bit more last Sunday, and it is finally done. And so now I shall show you my stripper pole in all its glory. There it is. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Don't you wish you had one of those in your living room? Yes, sir, Bob. Yep, I'm proud of that.
It's kind of like a furry's dream right there.
Well, I can't wear any of them, but
well, you could if you were limber, you could.
Well, I suppose. Goth, you're in the chat. Or do furries like stuffed animals too? Is that a big part of furry community, or is it just costumes you can wear? I mean, I imagine it depends on the particular person, but yeah, give us some feedback there.
What the hell did I get into?
We are going to talk about furries, and then we're going to talk about GamerGate. What? I think furries actually came up for a brief mention in SPJ AirPlay, and Chris, what's her name? Hoff Summers?
Christina Hoff Summers.
She's like, what is that? And then Milo was like, whisper, 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 and she's like, oh.
Yeah, that should definitely be a gift.
What he said, but Goth owns 5. Well, I beat you because I owned like 50. So, James, any Let me guess, Terraria?
No, Twitter and work all this week. Lots of
Well,
work.
Yeah.
that's true.
So
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mention Minecraft because, yes, I've been playing Minecraft forever. I finally finished building my castle. Now I just got to decorate the whole thing. So, lots of fun. But yeah. But that's all I'll say about that.
Yep. Goth's collection
Uncharted
is
is awesome.
yeah. Goth's collection are all skunks. I don't think I have any skunks. My grandmother had a collection of skunks, but they were all porcelain figurines that she had on a shelf.
Wait, why do you have all those stuffed animals?
Because I like them. Really, they're just stuffed animals I've acquired over the years. Most of them are from my early childhood, and I've
Andrew
just
doesn't throw anything away.
yes, yeah.
He's got a box of Masters of the Universe toys at his parents' house.
It's no. I know.
Oh, is it?
It's here.
You brought it. Okay,
Oh,
I thought
yeah,
it was
yeah,
still
yeah.
at your parents'
All the
house.
Masters of the Universe toys, He-Man, in case you don't know what that is, Transformers. I've got little things of Battle Beasts. You remember Battle Beasts? Or
Nice.
Muscle Men? Yep. I've got
Yeah.
Garbage Pail Kids, the cards. I don't have any dolls of that.
I can't really
Teenage
pick
Mutant
on
Ninja
you.
Turtles, Transformers, all kinds of cool stuff.
I can't really pick on you for that kind of stuff because I have a gigantic collection of peanut stuff just in boxes everywhere, like stuffed animals, porcelain things, anything with peanuts on it, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm not really one for the tchotchkes and figurines and little things that you'd put on shelves and mantel places, but I have a bunch of actual toys, dolls, action figures type of things, and stuffed toys, and the rest of it are mostly movies, books, printed and illustrated books, manga, comic books, things like that. So I have a couple. Most of the small figurine type of things I have are came with a DVD or something that I bought, like. I don't know. It's over there. You can't see it, but the Ayori Aoshi set came with little figurines of the characters from the show. So I have that on my bookshelf in my bedroom, I believe. So, Hal asks, have I ever thought of doing a game weekend on GamePolitics with Terraria and other games? Well, I don't play Terraria, but it is coming out to the Wii U next year, so maybe I'll give it a go.
Hey, it's also coming to Linux, so there we go. 2 platforms had been missing.
Yeah, I don't know. Let us know, folks, if you'd be interested in a weekly, bi-weekly GamePolitics Twitch stream of a video game or something like that. We could always theme it around games that are in the news, like Hatred or No Pineapple Lives Forever.
No Pineapple
Left Behind.
No pineapple lives forever.
No,
There's the sequel.
that sounds
there
like
you
a
go.
good game. No Pineapple Lives Forever. I don't know
If I'm
what
going
I
to
was-
play Hatred, somebody's going to pay me to do it.
Well, okay, so
Not
if
because
I
it's-
play Hatred for GamePolitics, will you pay me to do it, James?
No, I won't. It's not worth the money. It's not that it's controversial. It just doesn't look like a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much what every reviewer said when that game came out. It's like, well, here it is. Meh, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
right.
anyway, listeners,
before-
chat, if you have any ideas about that kind of thing, send us email, let us know. We're
Yeah,
open to
before
suggestions.
we get started though,
Mhm.
I'm just going to poll our readers here because I just beat Uncharted today, and I have a whole backlog of games, and some of them I've played almost to completion or more than halfway through. And I just want to kind of get the idea of which ones you think I should play next: Metroid Prime 2, Wario World, Valkyria Chronicles, Beyond Good and Evil, and Jak and Daxter Precursor Legacy. Which of those games should I play next to completion?
Beyond Good and Evil.
Yeah, that's the one I'm leaning towards. But
Chronicles.
yeah, Valkyria Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great game, too.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll see if anybody in the chat has anything to say. But yeah, I've been leaning towards actually both of those. Just haven't decided which one to go towards just yet. All right. Enough about me. and the
Okay,
games
all
I'm
right.
playing.
So let us look at this week's poll, which, if you guys were looking for it, I closed it this morning before the AirPlay started, because this week's poll asked, will mainstream media attitudes towards GamerGate be any different after SPJ AirPlay? So I would assume we've all watched SPJ AirPlay. I would assume most of our viewers at least watched part of it. So all these votes came in before SPJ AirPlay started. 617 people voted this week. 36% said yes, GamerGate will be viewed in a more positive light. 8% said no, mainstream media will think even less of GamerGate, and 56% said no, nothing will change. So the winning vote at just over half was SPJ AirPlay is not going to change mainstream media's attitude towards GamerGate. So, honored guests, what do you think?
So, James, do you have something to say?
Okay, well, I'll go first.
Okay.
I voted no, nothing will change. Not that I thought I was thinking GamerGate would put on a poor show or anything like that. I just think that GamerGate's been around for about a year now, and I think everyone who is interested in learning about it has learned about it. Anyone who's not interested in GamerGate, at this point, probably nothing about it is going to interest them. Anyone who has looked into GamerGate and formed an opinion of GamerGate probably is pretty set in that opinion at this point, and that's unlikely to change. So that's why I went with nothing's going to change. I think mainstream media is going to continue roundly ignoring GamerGate. So what do y'all think?
I think you're mostly right. I voted that it wouldn't change as well, but I think with the bomb threat, it could actually improve now. Because I have seen some. Well, I don't know if you looked at Derek Smart's Periscope video.
No.
He ran a video for about it must have been an hour and a half after.
Yeah, I watched it.
Afterwards, and he actually did a good job of conducting man-on-the-street interviews, going around to all these different people, talking to them. Yeah, and
Well,
go ahead, James.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
There were quite a few press there interviewing people, and of course you got all GamerGaters there, all supporters who are telling them, no, your narrative has been wrong, and this is what we're about. And so I think they have a chance of, I think there'll probably be some national news stories on the bomb threats. And I don't know how you can really paint GamerGate in a bad light with it, unless you just, say, oh, this whole GamerGate thing is toxic, they draw bomb threats. So I think they have a chance of improving. It depends on the mainstream media, though, and that's who the hell knows with them.
That's true, but do you see mainstream media Times or the Post or anything going, big GamerGate conference held at the, or a discussion held at the SPJ conference, there was a bomb threat, bomb threats suck, and that's all they ever say about GamerGate again?
That's certainly possible.
Yeah.
That's certainly possible. I did see someone with, I think it was in Dallas. Her last name was Aguilera, I think. She was. It looked like she was starting to look into GamerGate as a result of this whole AirPlay thing, and of course GamerGate is just flooding her with information. I forget her name. Her last name is Aguilera.
I think it was one of the people that asked a question at the event. She's a journalism student.
Okay. I think I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Well, no, I don't know if it was a journalism. I thought it was actual journalist who was watching the stream on it. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'd have to
maybe,
look into it.
maybe. You might be right. It's been a long day.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Yeah, only just realized, I think, yesterday evening that because I live on the Pacific Coast, I had to get up at 6:30 to watch the damn thing. Last night I was like, oh no, I'm glad Child of Light ended because I have to go to bed if I want to get up early.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, 10 a.m. That's not a problem. Oh wait, I'm West Coast.
Yeah, it surprised me they did 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, those aren't quite gamers hours.
No.
Yeah. But back to the poll, I voted that I don't think anything will change. I think there are a lot of people who are still curious about GamerGate, but I don't think anybody's going to have a real epiphany about how great GamerGate is or whatever, if they've already formed an opinion by this point. And I don't think there's. I think most of the people who attended AirPlay, to watch it, were just more curious about, where they were today compared to, last year or whenever it was they last reported on it. But yeah, I just, I can't think of any reason why they would change their opinions, but. And this was back before I actually watched the show, and I still hold the same opinion. I just don't think anybody cares enough to change, to have their opinion changed on the matter.
Any other thoughts on mainstream media's view towards GamerGate, or how or if mainstream media might approach GamerGate from this point forward?
Well, I voted pretty much the same as everybody else did, but I do think that if people are if GamerGate paid attention to what Lynn said about, approaching journalists in a more gentler way, then maybe they can, get some interest from mainstream media, because the angry approach doesn't really work. At the end of the day, I mean, nobody wants to deal with that. I think the reason that mainstream media probably wouldn't want to cover it is because it's a very complex movement. It has too many moving parts, and it's not something you can cover in a, like for a news channel on TV that you can cover easily in a 5 or 10 minute segment. So,
yeah,
it's something that. One thing they mentioned is that the only people who had any measure of success covering GamerGate were beat reporters, reporters who have a specific niche that they've carved out, such as culture reporters or technology reporters. And these folks kind of have to track and follow and continue with this story. It's not something that they seem to have the luxury of reporting on once and then checking back in 3 or 4 months later and seeing what's up. It's something that by its nature is so complicated, convoluted, and has its reach out into so many different areas that it really requires someone to write multiple articles almost at least weekly to keep up with everything that's going on. And I don't see a lot of mainstream media assigning anyone that task, not because I don't think anyone could do it or would do it or wouldn't do it well, but because I don't. Listening to Lynn Walsh, she doesn't seem to think, and I am inclined to agree with her, that most mainstream media don't see the value of that kind of resource expenditure. None of the mainstream media's readership cares that much.
Right.
So it's not worth their time to spend that much time looking into it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into AirPlay later, but like I said, it has way too many moving parts, and when you try and translate that to somebody that's like not a beat reporter and is a more generalized reporter, they're just going to be like, no, thank you. This
Mhm.
is too much work.
Yeah, and the worst thing about it, I think, for mainstream media is that you have to have somebody who knows gaming culture, Reddit, 4chan, 8chan,
Twitter, yeah, all
Twitter.
that.
Yeah, you have to understand these the culture there, or else you just have no chance. I mean, it's the the other guy, Ren was his name, I believe, and
Yeah.
sometimes they looked like deer in headlights. They were just totally lost. And I just don't think that you're just don't have a chance of getting any kind of a grasp on this movement if you're not already within this culture and understand gamers.
Mhm.
There's just no chance you're going to get it, and no chance you're going to make an article that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, not at
Follow,
all.
Well,
follow,
but
follow this hashtag for a few weeks. Watch several multi-hour live streams. Do this and then, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
and to be clear, when we say no one's going to take that amount of time or it's not worth their time, it's not a laziness thing. It's it's a return on investment type of thing. I can't spend my entire life on this one story. I've got to make a living. I've got other things to write about.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're looking at 80 hours worth of minimum worth of research for a 700-word article. That a lot of people are going to be look at that and say, why would I do that when I can spend 3 hours researching this other thing and write a 700-word article? And that's that to me that makes sense.
Yeah, another
Yeah.
big part of the problem is one that I've been going on about with my article is the number of words are always a problem for a journalist. I come from a newspaper, and you have a 500-word article is a short little article. You have 250-word snippets. You have 750 words is a decent size article.
1,000 is a luxury.
1,000 is a luxury. 1,500 is a rare feature, and I guess we'll get into my article and everything later, but I had some of my responses were close to 1,500 words just for answering a question.
Yeah.
So getting a mainstream reporter to report on that is just it's a struggle.
GamerGate can be very verbose.
yes.
GamerGate wants you to know everything. And
Yes.
we saw that reflected in a lot of the GamerGate panelists earlier today, in that they would get on a subject and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and I don't mean that in any derisive way, but they would just get into the nitty-gritty of something, and you'd pan over to the other, to Ren and Lynn, and they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly. And to
did
be
you
fair,
start at the beginning? Because now I'm lost. I don't know what you mean. So,
to be fair to
yeah.
GamerGate, though, their reasoning behind this verbosity is that they have not been listened to by the media. So,
They're very eager to talk.
and of course, they feel they've been burned,
Mhm.
aggressively burned by the media. So they feel when they get a chance, boom, a volcano erupts.
It's like, ooh, I have someone's ear. All right, so let's talk about your article now. One of my, for those of you who don't know, Brad wrote an article which was an approach to how media might go about covering an online movement like GamerGate, and his experiment was, well, Brad, go ahead and talk about your article and what the
Yeah,
idea
explain
behind
it.
how you justice.
It's sort of difficult to explain, but in the media, there's been very little representation of GamerGate's side of the story, what the actual people in GamerGate think. I looked at one of the New York Times articles on GamerGate, and their only quote came from Adam Baldwin, who, of course, he came up with the tag, he's a perfectly legitimate person to interview, but he isn't GamerGate. GamerGate are, to me anyway, are the people who send in emails to get intel to pull out. They're the people who are sometimes very caustic, who make the memes, which some of them are excellent, by the way. There's some excellent on the anti side too, I must say. But those to me are the real GamerGaters, and they're anonymous. They will not. They will kill themselves before they tell you there's a leader in GamerGate, and they're hard to get a hold of. So my background as a survey researcher, I wanted to use that to essentially do a qualitative survey on GamerGate to see if I could represent them with sheer massive numbers. I got about 300 responses per my initial 7 questions.
So, in other words, what you were trying to do was interview a group that has no one to actually interview, no leader, no organization, no PR rep for you to go to and ask questions, right?
Exactly. To see if I could represent their side of the story in a way which they agree is transparent, without bias from my part, and where they actually voted on the responses, their favorite responses, so they had control over their answers that I would print. So yeah, it was a way to see if we can give them their voice. So eventually, reporters could look at that and say, "Oh, well, we can get their opinion. So maybe in the future we can do a back and forth where anti-GamerGate, you talk to them, you talk to GamerGate, and you can look more into the issue."
Okay. Now, that's an interesting point. I see a lot of different people have two completely polar opposite opinions on this. GamerGate is a group. It's actual group of people. People actually identify as GamerGate. They congregate in certain areas. Do you get the sense that there actually is a anti-GamerGate group?
Yeah. Well, first let me say, GamerGate would tell you no, they're not a group.
Okay.
A lot of them will say, I call them a movement, like a political movement. Some of them even don't like that. They're a hashtag. They kind of want to be weeds in the wind, where you can't really define them, which is understandable. I would definitely say they are at least a movement, and I think it's when you have 50,000 of them in a subreddit, I think it's okay to call them a group, probably. Anti-GamerGate, yeah. Anti-GamerGate is definitely a group, and I know that there's a lot of prominent people who think no, that's not true, but in my experience, it definitely is. These are people who Michael Koretzky did this too with you guys in the last podcast that you had with them, where he said that they are active and actively opposing GamerGate. And I saw someone on in GamerGazi who said that you could actually qualify neutral, because a lot of people in anti-GamerGate believe there's no neutral in the situation. They believe it's either the KKK or you're against the KKK.
So you end up with an issue where there are some GamerGaters who believe that if you're not with us, you're against us. But on the flip side, you have some anti-GamerGaters who think the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
So both people in both groups think that if you're not in their group, you're automatically in the other group, and there's no people in the middle going, "You're both assholes."
Yeah. I will say it's more. the anti-Gamergate side seems to view neutral people with a lot more suspicion because of what I said. They think, this is a hate group or a terrorist group or KKK, whatever, and how could anyone be neutral to the KKK? That seems to be their thinking.
Okay.
Which I don't think is
Yeah.
very helpful, but
No.
but that's
No.
what they seem to think.
Yeah, I mean, and you see this from both sides, where a lot of the discussion seems to really be focused on we've got to demonize the others. And that,
Oh,
to be clear, that goes completely both ways. You've got GamerGate
yes.
saying we need to make sure everyone knows how bad those journalists are. Bad, bad, bad. Roll up newspaper, whack. And then you have people on the other side who say the exact same thing about GamerGate. Everyone must know the horror that is GamerGate. So,
a couple of the comments on my article.
This is all you hear from both sides. If you're just kind of that person way over here who has never heard of GamerGate, if you even hear anything, it's those people shouting on both sides, which is not helping anyone else, I don't think.
Yeah, a couple of the comments on my article surprised me from GamerGate supporters who said, "I wish you had focused more on on the problems with the anti-GamerGate side," because I did mention that the anti-GamerGate side banned me from GamerGazi, but I don't understand why. This is your chance to get GamerGate's opinions out. Why would you even want to talk about anti-GamerGate? Just here's your chance. Talk about yourselves. But so I think, on both sides, there are a lot of what I call point counters who they say, "Oh, hey, this is a point for our side," and "Oh no, we lost 2 points because this person was critical of us."
We are all gamers. It's hard for us not to do that. It's like, we win! Count up the points. Point. That's more points than you. We win.
That's true.
Some of the reaction I heard to my favorite. I actually shared this with you in an email earlier this week. My favorite reaction to your article, and I saw this all over the place, was along the lines of, "See, now was that so hard?"
Yes.
Brad, was that so hard?
It was a. As I think I said to you guys in an email, I wrote an article on a local politics where we had a local president of a town who was, he was pretty corrupt, allegedly, and he had this scandal with a church, and there were FOIA problems and Open Meetings Act violations. That article was less tricky. Yeah. No matter how small your town is, your government's always going to be corrupt. But
what?
But that article was less tricky than the GamerGate article. I've never, I think my article is about 2,600 words long, which is a pretty big article. Every sentence in there is. I had to look at it 3 or 4 times from 6 different ways to make sure, am I expressing bias here? Am I too technical? What am I doing? It was not.
We told you to completely rewrite it about twice.
Yeah. There was one complete rewrite and then 2 or 3 drafts after that, which for me is actually quite a bit. But it definitely needed it, and it was not easy, but I think in the future it could be made to be much easier than what I did.
Streamlined.
Yeah.
Let me say this. I did not pitch the article. I did not write the article. I didn't have anything to do with doing anything on Reddit. I gave my couple cents, little more than 2 because I like to talk too, about what questions should be asked, about the idea in general. I talked a bit about some of the earlier drafts. I went back and forth with James. I didn't edit the piece either. James did, but I consulted with James a little bit on the editing of the piece and what direction it should go, things like that. I myself, who did not write or really edit this thing, although I did a final copy pass, I fixed one stray quotation mark, I think. I spent probably a little over 2 hours of my time on this article, and I barely did anything. So, Brad, give us some idea or even itemized timesheet of how long you worked on this from conceptualizing, researching, performing, and writing it.
That's
If you can.
yeah.
We've got time. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, first, actually, I need to thank you guys, you and James, for all the work you guys put in on it. It was, I know I put you guys through a whole lot of work. It was not easy for any of us, I know. You guys put a lot of work in there to make it, make sure that it had a good tone to it, a neutral tone. And I know there are people out there who say, "Oh, GamePolitics is a blog. Anyone could just submit anything to GamePolitics if they only knew."
And they can. We just don't publish it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite criticisms of the article, is that GamePolitics was just anybody can submit and publish on GamePolitics site.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? That makes no sense whatsoever.
That was on GamerGate.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just a message to them that that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah. But to answer your question, the actual idea, I had watched your guys' podcast with Michael Koretzky one night before I went to bed, and he was talking about the problems with covering GamerGate, and so I was thinking about them. I went to bed and I woke up and, what if we use some of my survey research background to look into doing these problems. And epiphany. So I went on to Reddit pretty much right away and said, "Hey guys, I got this idea," and I don't know why I didn't think about it, write it down, and look at it first. But this was on a Monday morning, pretty early, and as I said, it just kind of, there were people interested, but it mostly fell flat. That was when Gawker employees, of course, were leaving Gawker. So they would post, I think there were 2 or 3 posts saying, "Oh, hey, this Gawker employee left, yay!" And every time that happened, my idea to interview GamerGate just kept falling lower and lower, and I went over to the second page. So
because it's like no one's paying attention, right?
Yeah, and for that to work, it had to have enthusiastic support. It couldn't. You can't. It's not something that could have been half-assed. So I said, that night I said, "Okay, guys. Obviously, it doesn't have the support, but thanks anyways. It was worth a shot. I'll talk to y'all later." And I think I came back and I had about 70 notifications on my Twitter, and I don't know how it got out, but somebody said, "Hey, Brad's quitting this, and he shouldn't be quitting it so early. What the heck? Come on, GamerGate, let's get in on this." And okay, there's my enthusiastic support. So we went ahead with it, and it took me, I don't know, because I spent so much time discussing and working out the whole thing on Reddit. I wanted to do that for transparency mostly, and also because I wasn't all that familiar with Reddit when I started, so I wanted their help and their ideas to help me with it. And that took significant time. The questions themselves didn't take all that long. I would just think of questions. I thought of a million different questions. The only hard part there was coming up with which questions I would ask, and I knew that this is something that you have to keep short too. So which questions do you ask was the problem, but the writing it took several days, and I tend to be a fast writer usually too. So for it to take several days, it took all the weekend first it took a couple days to write, and then that one was thrown in the trash, and then it took the weekend again to write a new article, and then another couple days to do the edits on that one, and so it took some time.
We definitely red penned the first one to death.
Yeah.
Because it was very technical.
Yeah, I treated it like I didn't want to get any of my bias into the article, so I treated it like a survey research presentation.
Right.
And that obviously wasn't any good.
No, it was a good starting point.
It's not something anyone's going to want to read. Let's just say.
Yeah.
What I found most interesting and about your project, and I think probably most everyone would agree, is not the questions that were asked or the answers, the myriad answers that were provided, but the conclusions that you drew at the end of the article, or the last half of the article rather, and the preliminary observations and advice that you offered. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes, that actually I was originally going to look at that as two articles, where I present their Q&A in the first article and then talk about these conclusions and have other journalists take a look at it. But we instead, a much better idea to just compact it into one. But really, I had to talk about the conclusions because a lot of people, they still are confused about this, believe this is about GamerGate, about looking into GamerGate, about looking into whether their claims are true or not, about validating what they say, and that's totally not what I was trying to do. I'm doing much more of a meta article about how to look into GamerGate to see if we can. Because the main problem I had with this method at the start that I was worried about was whether or not I would get any real answers from GamerGate. Would they just give me this PR fluff where they use fancy words and they present themselves like writers, or would they be the gamers that we all know who don't really have much of a problem telling you off if they feel like they should tell you off?
So do you feel that GamerGaters in general have a future in PR?
No, they do not. I don't think so. I do think that is a good thing, though, for me with my article, because if they had just given me PR fluff, it would have been just a totally failed experiment, and it wouldn't have even been published as an article. It's good that they say what's on their mind without worrying about public relations so much, for a journalist anyways. For them, however, they certainly surprised me with, in particular, I think I told you guys this, the harassment question, where I asked if they bear any responsibility for the harassment involved in GamerGate. And what I was trying to do with that question was to see if I could evoke any sympathy from them, or how much would I evoke from them, or journalists love these redemption questions where maybe they could say, "Oh yes, we've learned something about this, and we don't bear responsibility, but we do sympathize with them, and we're very much against harassment." That was part of their answer, somewhat a very small part. They are against harassment. They will say they're against harassment very quickly. They're tired of that question. They're very tired of it, and they take no responsibility whatsoever for any of the harassment, in no uncertain terms where they were clear about that. And they went right after these victims of harassment. They questioned whether or not they had financial incentives to incite their own harassment, which I don't want to, no journalist is really going to do anything with that, I don't think.
No. But you bring that up, and we're probably going to talk about this later. But SPJ AirPlay got bomb threats, and everybody's like, it has to be the anti-GamerGate people sending in the bomb threats. And my thought is, it's like, doesn't GamerGate have a lot to gain by being the victim of a bomb threat? And so wouldn't they do it to themselves in order to gain that benefit?
I don't think they would, because they love talking about GamerGate so much that there's no,
Yeah, but then it legitimizes their movement that they're being threatened to shut up. It's...
Yeah, I get your point, but I don't think they would. But they I think if they were more PR minded, they would express more sympathy for the victims.
Yeah.
And now these victims, there is a possibility. I'm not saying that they haven't incited their own harassment. Honestly, I don't care. Whatever. That wasn't my investigation. But
right.
To even say that is as I asked with my follow-up question, how in the world is that not victim blaming?
Right.
Yeah.
And with the follow-up answer, they went after those victims again, and again they said, hey, they have financial incentive to incite cause their own harassment.
But the point of the article wasn't to validate any kind of claims either way. It was to show that you could take a large group of people and get some consistent answers from them.
Absolutely. And I think, especially if you look at that question, that really shows that I think we did at least a pretty good enough job here, because there were very few. We had, I think, over 300 responses on that question, and I don't know if there were 10 of them which said, yes, they bear some responsibility, or even really express sympathy for the victims. So there was definitely some consistency in that question.
Well,
do you think? I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I do believe that there are not necessarily the people that they say, but there are people on both sides of GamerGate that are they're profiting from it. And,
yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunism going on, a lot of people taking advantage. That's why you see a lot of why it's become kind of a culture war, because you have all these different factions coming in. You have conservatives coming in. You have men's rights activists. You have feminists. So everybody's loading up their Patreons and getting money.
Yeah, that's why I talked about Reddit or Kotaku in action a bit too. There's value there. You got 50,000 subscribers and almost 10 million page views per month. Those are some impressive numbers. That's a market you could sell to. Especially because they all have mostly a certain viewpoint, at least somewhat. some would say a libertarian, anti-political correctness kind of view. If you can take advantage of that, then you can easily sell to that market. And
well, there's definitely people taking advantage of it.
yes.
So, now you only interviewed the Kotaku in Action thread. As far as GamerGate goes, that was the area you focused your project on. But there are, of course, other haunts, so to speak, for GamerGate. So, do you think projects in the future, if mainstream media or anyone was going to adopt the Glasgow method, would it behoove them, and would it even be practical to expand that to cover more than just one area?
Yes, definitely. Anyone doing future research should definitely speak with Twitter and 8chan and Vote. I'm not sure how much Vote has in common with Reddit. You probably, I would say that you probably have quite a bit of people that are on Kotaku in Action are also on Vote, or vice versa. But that was definitely one of the flaws with my article, is that I didn't represent, especially 8chan, because pretty much everybody agrees that 8chan would be the more extremist side of GamerGate. And the thing is, with my article, I wasn't really wanting to look at the extremist side. I was wanting to, as Christina Hoff-Summers said today, I was wanting to target the center of GamerGate. And of course, I did get a few insults, a little colorful language here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, in the future, I would definitely talk to 8chan at least, and Twitter. The problem with those is that just increases your workload. With just Kotaku in Action, I had 2,700 responses to look through, some of them 1,500 words. So that's a lot of work going through that stuff. And you add 8chan to that and Twitter, and most mainstream journalists, there's no chance in hell they're going to do that.
Yeah. They're going to say, I could write 40 other stories in the amount of time it would take me to do this one Q&A session to
Absolutely.
see what GamerGate's about or what it thinks about this particular issue. So after AirPlay today, do you think there's any future for GamerGate in the mainstream media consciousness?
Oof, I don't know. My takeaway from it, I actually tweeted, my takeaway from the afternoon session of AirPlay was that mainstream media shouldn't touch GamerGate, probably. They don't even try to touch it unless you know gaming culture, and I think most mainstream outlets have proven that I don't think they have a chance of getting it right. So I would recommend to them, don't even try. Don't even cover it at all. Would probably be better than covering it how they have been.
Yeah,
So,
that's one thing I would say that was a theme at the first panel that's probably true, and that's that the mainstream media that has covered it has relied way too heavily on game journalism to get their story. They haven't really they didn't do any research on their own. So
yeah, and we saw that with my previous article on GamePolitics about the Wiseman survey, where she had a survey about whether boys, what their opinions are on are females too often treated as sex objects in video games. She asked that of 11-year-old boys. And I found that her survey methodology, well, actually, I didn't find it. Well, I got an expert to find it, a survey design expert who said this, this is awful. These questions are biased. The sampling, well, not the sampling, the representation is biased. You can't even. This isn't even useful as exploratory research, which non-scientific exploratory research is not useful because there's no methodology out there. So, but there were something like 20 different publications that ran with that survey saying, oh, hey, here are the results, without only one of them even questioned those results. So I think that kind of shows the problem. Actually, I think that also shows GamerGate why they believe in the collusion thing as well. Because these articles just kind of propagate themselves, and they just keep going through the media without question, or they're just copying each other.
I still think the movie industry writers are colluding, because why else would we have a top 10, top 15 movies of the year list, bottom 10, bottom 15 movies of the year list at the same time of the year every single year? And they all seem to think that pretty much the same movies are the best and the worst.
Absolutely.
Well, of course we have collusion. Everybody on the internet, all movie reviewers and everything, have said that Fantastic Four was a terrible flick. It's like that has to be collusion. There's no way Fox would make a terrible Fantastic Four movie. Yeah. So.
Excuse me, I think you mean Fan Four Stick.
Fan Four Stick, yes.
Fox actually announced the sequel to the movie already. With what money, I don't know.
No, they didn't.
I
heard it got canceled.
Okay.
And they
got canceled.
They were pretty quick to. They were pretty quick to clarify that the Fantastic Four did not share the universe with the X-Men.
I heard that they greenlit a Deadpool movie instead.
A sequel to Deadpool already?
Maybe. Yeah. So, but yeah, the whole collusion thing is silly. What it is there's people looking at websites, seeing an interesting story, and they're like, we should cover that, and then they do.
Yeah, but I can see from the GamerGator's perspective, when you get 10, 12 articles in the same day coming out with that same theme,
Were they in the same day though?
Yeah, within 24 hours, there were.
Are we talking the
like 8,
Gamers Are
articles?
Dead articles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I brought that up.
That's all right. Yeah, let me go ahead, talk. I'll bring it up.
No,
it was day 1 and day 2. I have it. Yeah. Hang on a sec.
Well, I could see that. It's pretty easy to churn out a screed like that or an article like that. If you're really into it. There are times when I've see something that just really grinds my gears, and yeah, I'll write out something and it's almost legible within the hour. Way back a few years back, the popular software Game Maker had a bug in its DRM that was defacing people's games that they were making, and yeah, I wrote out an article complaining about that, and then I videotaped it and put it on YouTube and stuff, and I did that all in like 3 hours. So I can understand somebody reads an article or an editorial that says, wow, that is a great opinion, and I share that opinion. I want to share it publicly, then yeah, I could see it getting released within a couple hours from then.
Yeah, and what happened is people get courage. They see, oh, somebody's being brave writing this article. I can be brave now too. And so that's why those articles happen.
So there were 9 articles on August 28th throughout the day from about 10 a.m. to 9:33 p.m., although a couple of them are kind of time unknowns. There was one on the 29th There was another on September 2nd, and there was one on September 3rd. That's the, from what I understand, the most popular list of what constitutes a Gamers Are Dead article. Anyway, let's see. By the way, let me give a quick count here. It was 2? Scroll, you stupid thing. Hang on. 1, 2. Hey, guess how many of the Gamers Are Dead authors are on the Game Journal Pros list?
2.
2.
Yeah.
2.
Hey, did we write one of those?
No.
Oh, okay.
Did I write one? I'm trying to remember if I wrote anything similar. I think sometime around that time I wrote on my Random Tower blog, I wrote something about harassment. I don't think I've ever written anything specifically about Gamergate or gamers being dead or anything like that, but I could be mistaken. It's been a while.
Let me just say something, because I'm arguing with people in the chat about something that happened months ago. One of the and this is going to be a little bit off topic. One of the popular things to talk about is Brianna Wu, who had a game, the name of which I can't remember, but it was on Steam Greenlight, and it has the Greenlight forums. There was a thread created in the comment section at one point that said something, I'm a horrible person, come harass me. Something along those lines. And it was logged in as Space Cat Girl, Brianna Wu's actual name. And then it disappeared. And then it popped up 4 days later with the exact same thing under someone else's account. So what a lot of people figured is, oh, Brianna accidentally logged in as herself to create a fake let's harass Brianna Wu thing to get ammo for the they're harassing me campaign. And then she said, oh shit, I logged in as myself and quick delete. And then figured that everyone forgot 3 days later and then posted the same exact thing word for word under a different account. That's what people think. What actually happened, and I know this because I actually asked Brianna Wu and I looked into this. I didn't write the story because who fucking cares? What actually happened, pardon my French, sorry. What actually happened was she was trying to corral all the harassment into one spot. So she logged in as herself, knowingly logged in as herself, said, I'm a horrible person, come harass me, in an attempt to keep it here. You know, just, if you want to harass me, fine, do it here. We know this is true because she tweeted about that a couple times. She says, if you want to harass me, here's a spot to do it, go for it. That didn't work, so she deleted it later that day. Someone else put that back up a couple days later. So that's what happened. Brianna Wu was not harassing herself. She didn't accidentally log in as herself. She was logged in as herself. She made a post trying to corral stuff. It was a dumb idea. She admits it's a dumb idea. It didn't work. She took it down. Someone else put it back up. That's what happened. There you go. So.
You were just wasting your breath.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I didn't write about it.
Oh, and we shouldn't respect James, apparently.
Oh. Well, Karen says, Fudge always respected you, man, so I'm feeling the love on that one.
With my article, I did get a couple people to say, oh, hey, on James Fudge's website, they wrote a article that was fair to Gamergate. Oh, my God.
Well, they were probably mad about the article last week
Yes.
about Carl Benjamin.
Yeah, it really depends on what we write. We are heroes and villains depending on what we
exactly.
write. So.
Yeah, I will say the reason I chose GamePolitics, to pitch my articles to you guys, one is I'm dealing with the political side of gaming here,
right?
and two, I think you guys have been absolutely fair. Well, at least for the most part, from what I've seen.
We try to be.
I reserve some of that for future, for future. Who knows?
Right. Well, when I do my expose on you, for instance.
Exactly.
Well, I've already provided James enough ammunition with my stuffed animal covered stripper pole.
Yeah. And I did hear from one of my followers on Twitter that yes, furries are often into plush animals.
Well, that's good.
Cool.
That is good to know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And actually, let me take a look at YouTube here, because I always ignore YouTube because I forget about it. Let's see if anyone has any interesting comments. If you cause drama, it creates more money for the project/game. Money is all about money.
Money is all about money?
Money is all about money. Thank you, the Tyven Show.
That's probably not what he meant, but I kind of get what he's saying.
Yeah, I get what he's saying. That's just a funny typo there, but that was a typo. Money is all about money.
Money is actually all about money, though.
Of course it is.
You need money to make. You got to spend money to make money. You know, you got to invest money to make money.
Well, and you've got to make money in order to have money to spend too. So
right on.
I'm a writer, so I have no idea what you're talking about. What this money thing is.
Me either.
Andrew just checked the comments on the YouTube. On the
no,
the
I'm just saying
side.
in general. I don't know what this money thing is.
Money. Yeah.
Well, of course not. You're a reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So, we're over the hour anyway, but we'll probably talk about this more next week. But SPJ, the event as a whole, bomb threats notwithstanding, how do you think it went? What were your impressions? Do you think it?
How many case studies did they actually get through? I think they managed to get 3.
Yeah.
Was it 2 or 3?
3. The first was the Temkin. The second was the
the first one lasted like half of the entire 2-hour
they spent
block,
way too much time on that first one, and they knew that too.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm still transcribing the first question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was listening to that and I'm like, this is the first time I've heard about this, and I'm like, I read the game sites regularly, and I've never heard of this rape allegation against Cards Against Humanity creator.
I heard about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just spacing it that day.
What I think Ash, is it Sko?
I really don't know how to pronounce her name.
I think what she was trying to do was build a narrative around, this is the narrative that has been cast against GamerGate. So I think that's what she was trying to do with that. I don't think they were successful. What I would have done was just list off these conflicts of interest, like the Patricia Hernandez thing. Just they have a ton of them that they could have brought up, and they are right.
Yeah.
Those are not good.
Yeah.
There was definitely it was definitely indict Gawker Day.
Yeah.
In that first panel.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Well,
fun.
here are the 3 things that they came up with.
That they managed to talk about.
What they had time to talk about. They had 5. They only had time for 3. The first one was Max Temkin, who they seem to have a problem with how Kotaku, or specifically Patricia Hernandez, criticized how he responded to a rape allegation.
Right.
They also criticized Jezebel for the way it phrased its headline, saying allegations instead of allegations singular. That seems kind of pedantic to me. I mean, I looked up that article, and
That's fair.
It's fair. I mean, yeah.
Jezebel is not a gaming
Although
website.
there were several, the accusation did spawn onto Twitter and became several different things. So maybe that's what I don't know. It seems a little pedantic, but it's fair.
You know, her point was that. Well, we'll get into it. Give us the last one. Give us the last.
And then
one.
apparently Gawker balked at some point because Times a few months later wrote about Temkin but didn't mention this thing. The second one was Patricia Hernandez wrote a few articles about that she either wrote really short articles about one of Anna Anthropy's games or she wrote a longer article that quoted Anna Anthropy in it somewhere but did not disclose that she was a former roommate.
I think she wrote several articles about various friends and.
I think they said 6, if I remember.
As far as about Anna Anthropy, it's like 12. So I don't know where they got 6 from, but but they went back and added the disclosure. Although I found one they missed. Oops. And then the third one was the Jeff Gertzman getting fired from GameSpot like 8 years ago.
Yeah,
due to advertiser pressure.
I don't really count that as one.
No,
we all agree that was messed up.
Yeah,
and on all sides. And the reason that happened, if you remember correctly, is because the guy that was the EIC came from like a marketing background, and so he didn't really get what his job was. He stood up for the advertiser over the writer.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that would count as a journalism issue.
Well, it is because
it is an ethics issue. It's more of an editorial-ish ethics issue.
Yeah, editorial and advertisement wasn't actually the journalist with the problem, but it's a journalistic publication. So, but I look at these. I figured the 5 that we only heard 3, but the 5 that they brought up were supposed to be their major issues. These are the 5. I don't know why I'm holding up both hands, but the jazz hands. The 5 that we want you to know about. The biggest.
I can tell you the other 2.
Go ahead.
Do
you know?
They kind of slipped out. One of them, they were going to talk about Game Journal Pros,
right?
Which I was a member of, and they were going to talk about Brad Wardell.
Okay.
Brad Wardell.
So
I know. No.
But of the 3 they mentioned, I came out of the show thinking, okay, we've got an opinion piece that a lot of people took the wrong way. The author and the EIC said our readers are taking this the wrong way, understandably so in a way, so let's fix that, and handled it exactly right in that they kept the original piece, put up the revised version, and linked it, prominently displaying at the top that this has been revised for this reason. So they handled it appropriately.
I believe the revision was still not.
Well, people still don't like Patricia Hernandez's opinion, but not liking someone's opinion is not an ethics issue.
Well, I think what they are saying there is that she's still putting blame on Temkin with that revision, and that's it was just this one person on Facebook saying, he sexually assaulted me or whatever. So I think their problem is that they stuck with this narrative that you're guilty until proven innocent.
That's what people say about the article, but I've read it and the revision, and I don't get that out of it.
Yeah, see, I haven't read the revision. I can't comment on that.
Okay, well, even if you don't care for their revision, they at least they did handle it to what they all agreed was the appropriate thing to do. If you say something incorrect, and they didn't say anything incorrect, it was just an opinion piece that was not communicated clearly, you post a retraction, correction, revision as quickly as you can, leave the original up, and link to it prominently, which they did.
Right.
The other thing was Patricia failed to disclose that Anthropy was her roommate in a few articles she wrote. That's true, and Kotaku added those disclosures, so yay. And then the Gertzman thing, which happened 7 or 8 years ago, and everyone agreed was a really crappy thing. So I came out of the first panel thinking, well, if those are the worst examples, I think we're doing pretty well, all told.
Well, the problem is, especially with the second one, the disclosures, is that letter he read. Was it from Totillo?
Yeah.
Where he said he didn't really see any problem with these, even with adding the he obviously didn't really care. I think, anyways.
If you go by that statement, it sure doesn't sound like he cared.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that he didn't care. I think it's just that he didn't think that it was as big a deal as everybody's making it out to be. You know, the person wasn't a roommate currently, at the time of writing. It was just a former roommate. So, it's like, say you do write something and somebody is your roommate, and then, they move out, and then 3 years later they do something cool and you write about it. It's like, has the statute of limitations gone by? Do I have to disclose that 3 years ago I shared an apartment with them for 6 months? It's my thoughts on this is, you get into very wobbly territory, and it's like eventually you're just going to be disclosing, yeah, I passed that guy out on the street when 3 years ago, 6 years ago, and said hi to him. I better disclose that. It's like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, but there's no statute of limitations on disclosures. Like,
personally,
they had a friendship, and let's be honest, Steven says she didn't know any better, and I believe him. So that's what he says. She, but she should have disclosed it.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, if I'm going to write an article on somebody I know, I don't see why anyone wouldn't disclose that automatically. It just seems like common sense to me.
Yeah.
Although a lot of the articles were things like this, and I'm going to read the entirety of one of these articles that was positive coverage of the video game made by someone who is a former roommate. Here's the entire article. Anna Anthropy, designer behind Dysphoria and Triad and author of Rise of the Video Game Zinisters, just released a Halloweeny digital choose-your-own-adventure book. It's really charming. You can go between telling jokes to skeletons to finding a crystal city. Purchasable here. That's it. So I think that might be what Totillo's getting at when he says things like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, because it was... I agree that this should have been disclosed, but also it was just kind of a, hey, my buddy's doing something cool, check it out, although she really should have said the my buddy part of it.
Sure.
I get what you're saying, but she's promoting her friend's work. That's and I don't see why you wouldn't disclose that. I mean, it's to me. Although I guess I'm more of an old school newspaper type of a journalist. There's just no way I would ever say that about anybody's work without disclosure on that.
And I can understand that. If somebody is your current friend and you're hanging out with them on a regular basis, yeah, that needs to be disclosed. But when I was saying earlier, it's like, if I haven't talked to somebody that I share an apartment with for 6 months, 5 years ago, do I need to disclose that? It's like, I shared an apartment with this guy 5 years ago. I haven't talked to him in those 5 years until he sent me this email with this video game that he made. I think it's cool. It's like...
yes, you need to disclose that because it's not that you might not be biased, but perception. It's perception of the reader.
It's an appearance of impropriety.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Lynn Walsh, I think, mentioned somewhere in the first panel. Let me see if I can find it in my notes. Go ahead and talk.
With this whole disclosure thing, and it's I myself I find I find this whole disclosure thing a little confusing and somewhat annoying at times, because I write in a very niche market. niche-y.
Niche.
But I write about games made by Oklahoma developers, and I live in Oklahoma. I go to where the gamers hang out and stuff, and it's like, if I build up a relationship over the games they're making and everything, it's just it's like, okay, to me it's implied that I have hung out with these guys a couple of times at game dev meetups and stuff to talk about their work and and get to know them. It's like it's somebody I know that I met at this game dev meetup. They're having a baby. I think that's awesome, But they also do other cool things, and it's like it's just like I get this whole crossover between a personal and professional relationship with a lot of these people, and it's because I spend so much time hanging out with them to learn about their work,
Right.
and so it's like I guess I have to disclose every time I write an article for OK Game Devs, I'm gonna have to disclose that relationship. It's like.
Well,
To me, it should be implied, but
here's what Walsh and LaForme summed up for the whole. What's the answer to the whole Patricia Hernandez failing to disclose her Anna Anthropy's roommate status? They concluded that editors need to be on top of the EICs need to be on top of this.
Exactly.
Kind of stuff. And also, as a journalist, be as transparent as possible. As relationships and friends, it can be impossible not to make friends with the people you have relationships with. But you should still address even perceived conflicts of interest. Even if it's not a conflict of interest, if it could be perceived that way, you should still make a disclosure. That was the final word, so to speak, on that segment of SPJ AirPlay.
And that's an important thing, is that, definitely, as an editor, you should probably ask all your writers. What this was mentioned during the first panel. You should ask your writers for a list of possible conflicts. Then you won't have to worry about this sort of thing, because as the editor, you'll know that somebody shouldn't be writing about something because it's a conflict.
Honestly, as an editor, I've edited newspaper. If a writer didn't disclose that to me automatically, I don't know if I would trust that writer ever again.
Right. I mean, you can't blame Patricia Hernandez, because it sounds like that wasn't the policy there, so she didn't know.
I
Maybe
struggle with
she's
that
really
because,
green. I have no idea.
I guess, but I would never.
I think that's probably an
that.
issue with more gaming journalists in the so-called enthusiast press than we might think, because a lot of the editors that are hired on to the gaming enthusiast sites that you and I love to read are goofballs like me, who are just big fans of video games and love them so much and want to talk about them, and we get hired as an editor, and holy crap, I'm writing for Kotaku or IGN or Escapist or whoever, and it's like, I happen to know people interested, so this is a cool game, you should check out this game, and it doesn't occur to you that you're a professional now. There are things professionals do. And I think that I have no idea how green Patricia Hernandez is or was at that point, but and I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I think it's a reason we might see that often in the enthusiast press, because a lot of us are not professionals with any formal training. We just have an enormous unbridled love for video games at the expense of our budget of being paid.
Yeah.
We want it so much that we don't really care about money, which is why I have a completely different full-time job to journalism.
I don't
make a damn thing at this.
I don't think green is the right word to use. I just think that, she didn't know the rules. She's been writing for a while, but she didn't know the rules, and no one told her the rules. So she was operating on her own.
Yeah, I've been writing for 9 years, 10 years, and I'm still learning. I have a Bachelor of Science in Electronics Engineering Technology. I did not go to journalism school.
Right.
I'm picking this up as I go along. So all the time I'm learning new stuff. So I think as long as Patricia Hernandez has learned from her mistake and has continued to issue proper disclosures henceforth, we good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it should be noted that Ren Reform
hmm
said this issue was a slam dunk for GamerGate.
Yeah.
And they've already made that a meme. Slam dunk.
Yeah.
There are a couple things memes out there with Lynn Walsh and Ren where they're like, "Oh yeah, GamerGate, you're right," and so GamerGate is right. Quote from Lynn Walsh.
Context is not important in this case. Just this quote.
And you know, and you know, you don't know what happened internally.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though it might seem like Steven doesn't care when he's writing something to the public, you don't know, the conversation that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it definitely probably caused a policy change where.
Yes, but what I'm saying here is that GamerGate is seeing this, this slam dunk and this agreement as validating GamerGate.
Sure.
Which I'm not saying that it doesn't or anything, but
Right.
I think they view that one piece really as their big victory for the day.
Yeah. Now everyone knows to take purchasing Rise of the. No, what is it? I don't even know what it's called.
Well, from their point of view, it's now people know that GamerGate is actually about ethics and journalism, and is not about this harassment narrative that mainstream media has been pushing on everyone.
Except when it comes to victim blaming.
Yeah.
They're pros at that.
It depends. Well, what GamerGate is about depends on who you talk to. It really does. I've spoken to many GamerGaters, and a lot of what they're concerned about is, and when I say they, I mean the specific GamerGaters that I was talking to, were really concerned about the politicization of games and games reporting, and even more specifically, people who criticize aspects of games that they like. I've spoke to several GamerGaters where that is the real sticking point for them.
A lot of it's culture war, though. It's just culture. It's a culture war.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are one of the things Alum mentioned towards the end was a quote from someone from Vox who had said, "Gamergate is yet to uncover any legitimate ethical problems," and he said, "That's not true, is it? Is it? Is it?" And they said, "No, this is an ethical issue."
Yeah.
Thumbs up. I actually wrote Alum because I couldn't remember the name or the quote, and I said, "Can you help me out here? Because I can't scrub through the video fast enough to find it." And he pointed it to me. And what the full quote is though GamerGate has yet to uncover any legitimate ethical problems in the gaming journalism community, it's not as if discussions about the topic don't need to be had. And that's very true, and I think there's just a lot of garbage getting in the way of that discussion, because I think it's very valuable to talk about conflicts of interest, disclosure issues, separating editorial and advertising. Things like that are very, very important, but there's so much that's important to so many different people that sometimes this stuff gets lost in a shouting match over who's saying what and who's doing what. So yeah, it can get real messy.
That's one of the things that when Walsh was saying, that they would probably have an easier time if, they were a little more polite. If you came, if you approached it from a gentler kind of perspective, then maybe they could get more things done.
Yeah, I think, you have to wonder. It's like, was GamerGate as a whole movement of all the stress and Sturm and everything that's gone on in the last year, was that really needed to convince Stephen Totillo to tell Patricia Hernandez to put damn disclosures on those 6 to 12 articles?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it seems weird to me that GamerGate was actually needed to do that. I have a hard time believing that. Did anyone actually try writing? Well, now to be fair, this particular thing was not uncovered until like 6 weeks into GamerGate, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
So the Vox writer may have actually been right, because when he wrote that article was about the time that I heard of the Patricia Hernandez stuff. So maybe he wrote that slightly before that came out, or hadn't heard of it yet. So who knows?
I feel bad. I feel bad for Patricia Hernandez. It was like beat on Patricia Hernandez Day.
Well, at least she's not Gawker. I mean,
well,
I talked to her on Twitter though. She's a nice lady. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything. The other thing that I look at it from a consumer point of view, I look at the article and I think, is she deliberately hiding this relationship to try and trick me into playing a game that she actually thinks sucks but owes Anna a solid? That seems really far-fetched to me. To me, I look at it and I go, me personally, I don't care. But I look at it and I think, this looks like something that she completely spaced on or didn't know to do. And I see a few of you in the chat there saying every journalist should read the SPJ handbook. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I agree. Yeah. But here's the thing. As I said, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. It was when I started doing this, I had never heard of the SPJ. I did not know what it was. So I would imagine there are probably plenty of writers out there in the enthusiast press who have no damn idea who the hell that is or what they do.
Well, I haven't heard of the SPJ until
this year
they started organizing the AirPlay event.
Yeah, but
I think it may have been mentioned from time to time, and I just never took note of it. But this was the first time it's actually been like front and center in my attention. Yeah.
Again, not excuses. Reasons.
But I mean, people also forget that most websites have their own policies in place already. You know what I mean? So this idea that nobody has an ethics policy is silly, because they do. Do they follow it? Do they all follow it to the letter? Well, that's up for debate.
But do they all actually explicitly publish one?
Right. Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I'm not going to publish one on GamePolitics ever. It's never going to happen. Because I have my own, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I just, I know what's right to do and I know what's wrong to do. So.
But how open, James, as a EIC of a game reporting channel, how open to you are concerns from your readership over things like disclosures or whether you're supporting Kickstarters or Patreons? If a reader came to you and said, this is something that's important to me, I would like to know GamePolitics' stance on it, how would you address that?
I'd send them an email.
Oh, well, okay.
And say, here's what I support, here's what I don't. But now they kind of have one, because I put up that editorial back in October before everybody else decided to jump on the bandwagon to address that whole Game Journal Pros thing. But so it kind of lists what I, whatever I do and don't do. Like I was accused of, doing hardware reviews, or taking money for hardware reviews, which was bizarre because I've never actually written a hardware review. So. And I don't support any Patreons, or I have a couple of Kickstarters I supported. But it's there. It's there for people to read.
Yeah. The other thing that I find surprising about some GamerGate opinions and attitudes is the I don't like the way, not necessarily ethics issues, but not the politicization of games and games reporting. I don't like the way this particular website talks about video games.
Right.
Go to IGN. Disclosure: I write for IGN. I do. I just thought of that, but IGN is a site that rarely ever talks about social issues, gender issues, the things that sites like Polygon are more inclined to write an editorial about. So I always wonder why people get so upset about Polygons and sites of their ilk type of coverage when there are plenty of other options that provide the type of coverage that you're looking for.
Because they don't want to admit it, but they like those sites. They like Polygon, but they don't like the direction it's going in.
Well, their answer to I kind of asked that question in the article. Why can't you guys just ignore? They said that people are trying to push their political ideologies down their throats.
Right.
And I said, can't you just ignore them? And they said no, because they keep trying to challenge us, and they keep infecting like 4chan. They kicked GamerGate off of 4chan, even though they had these other just awful forums on 4chan. So they're, I guess they're feeling encroached on. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. This just seems to be the very essence of the phrase "don't feed the trolls." If GamerGate doesn't like this particular site or these particular articles, just don't go there. Don't give them your views. Don't give them your money, or well, not technically your money, but don't give them ad revenue for you going there and viewing this article. And especially don't go there and write a comment about how you hated this article. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, if I go somewhere and I read something that I just don't like, I have a tendency not to go there again. That's like why I avoid TechRaptor, because I read a couple articles there and I thought they were absolutely terrible, and I haven't been to TechRaptor again since.
And now you're talking about it.
Yeah, and now I'm talking about it. But same thing with certain YouTube channels.
Signal boosting the things you don't like.
But same thing for YouTube channels. Like, if I don't like a certain number of videos, I'll just hide that, just continually click the not interested until that particular thing goes away, and I remove those videos from my history because I don't want suggestions coming from those same people.
Well, although I've found recently that YouTube keeps recommending I watch my own videos, so YouTube's got good taste.
Nice.
It knows what I like. It's been when we had Koretzky on the show, it's been, look at this one. I've been getting that one thrown at me every day for the last week and a half. It's funny.
Yeah,
And
nice.
that one only has like 1,100 views or something. So
Yeah.
We should wrap it up. Any final thoughts you gents want to communicate before we take off? And chat, you guys are verbose as hell today. I'm very sorry. I'm completely unable to keep up with you. So not ignoring you. I'm trying to read it out of the corner of my eye, but I'm glad you guys are engaged. Sorry we haven't been as interactive as usual. So
how many people are in chat?
A lot.
Like almost 30.
Wow.
Okay.
We've got tons. Yeah.
Well, I think I brought some verbose GamerGators down on you guys.
Oh, no, that's fine.
No, that's cool.
I've noticed we have some new faces here, so that's screen names, but yeah, so we got some new people here. So welcome everybody. If we we usually name check people who are new, but we've got a lot of you.
Yeah. What was interesting is in the wake of Brad's article earlier this week, we had a influx of several new GamePolitics accounts, and I manually approve each account, to make sure we don't have spam bots. And
even though you let some spam bots through,
sometimes I'm just not sure. I don't want to block someone who's a legitimate account who just has a really weird name. I mean, maybe your screen name really is face to keyboard. That's my screen name. That's usually a spam bot, but some people may go by that name. So I went on Twitter and I pinged GamerGate and I said, if you tried to make a GamePolitics account and it's not active, let me know so I can activate it. And that got a lot of attention, far more than I was really expecting. And I had a few people saying, what is this sorcery? What are you doing? I said, I want everyone to be able to comment if they want to. And that seemed to completely floor a lot of people. It was really weird. They're like, what?
Which is weird because they could always do that.
Yeah, this is not a new thing. I mean, now granted, sometimes I'm going to look at something and it'll look like a spam bot to me and I'll ignore it. And if that ever happens and you're trying to create an account, just ping me on Twitter somewhere and let me know and I'll get you taken care of. So there you go. Any other final thoughts on AirPlay before we skedaddle?
Yeah, I think, well, these are kind of broad thoughts that I think that what I take away, especially from the the afternoon shift there, was it was really about an old school journalism versus newer forms of journalism. It was straight news versus not straight news, which is more modern. I spoke with Jesse Singal of the Boston Globe, NY Mag, Science of Us, and he was on Twitter too, going off on Koretzky about, Koretzky is very much of the opinion, and I think GamerGate, most of them are of this opinion as well, that opinion articles should be labeled opinion, hard news articles should be labeled hard news. Don't mix the two ever. Don't cross those streams. And
I've known not to do that since 1984. That's a Ghostbusters joke.
Wow.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and Jesse Singal's view, I interviewed him for I was going to talk about straight news versus opinionated news in my article, but I ran out of room. His view is that more modern journalism does not do that, and they talked to Milo Yiannopoulos about that as well, and Milo said, well, if you read my article and it's a lead, you see a proper lead there, then it's more of a straight news article. They don't label opinion versus straight news either, and I think that's more of a modern approach that, I'm not sure of my opinion on that yet.
What they concluded at the event was that as far as reviews go, opinions are, of course, perfectly fine. You just need to be transparent about everything, and stuff needs to be labeled appropriately. Things that are sponsored need to be clearly labeled as sponsored. Opinion pieces should be labeled as opinion pieces, other disclosures. And the interesting observation I noted that they came up with is newspapers have individual sections, the sports section, the columns and things like that. A lot of websites do the just blog roll type of thing. So if there is anything that tags it as opinion or editorial or news or whatever, a lot of times it'll be in the small meta tags at the end of the article. So I don't know if we really need to opinion news. To me, I've never had trouble unless someone's just really a weird writer. I've as a reader, I felt I've never had trouble figuring out the difference between the two. Even in a predominantly news piece where the writer says, and in my opinion, blah-de-blah-de-blah, I've never had trouble separating that out. So I'm not sure, like you, Brad, I'm not sure where I fall on the idea that everything needs to be really specifically labeled as either opinion or news or whatever.
Yeah. I'm working on the idea that is a large part of the problem with GamerGate, though, because there has been very little straight news pieces on GamerGate. Very little. I actually asked. I went onto the Against GamerGate subreddit and also on Twitter, and I asked people for examples of neutral journalism written from a neutral point of view on GamerGate, and some people gave me articles that were completely wrong, like David Auerbach's article on how to end GamerGate. It was totally filled with his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But then a few people mentioned Eric Kane's pieces. A couple anti-GamerGate people mentioned Eric Kane as well, but that was very, very few people who did that.
He writes a lot of opinion pieces, though. What
Yeah.
did they link you to?
Yeah, he certainly does. But he believes that he is operating more from a neutral position.
I
and-
disagree. I totally disagree with that. I also I disagree that William Usher is you know, he's right. He's basically writing from a pro GamerGate position. Tech Raptor is writing from a pro GamerGate position.
I would agree with that, but I think it's important to note that on neither side can they easily name, oh, hey, look, the New York Times did a neutral piece on GamerGate, or the Boston Globe, or, if any mainstream media has attempted to write neutral pieces, they have either failed or they haven't gotten the attention that, and people don't know about them.
Right. I would agree that they do a poor job.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the important foundations of the problem that GamerGate is having is all these media sources. They're all writing columns on GamerGate, and they're all mostly attacking GamerGate in their opinion pieces. And when they see something like my article where I'm not offering you my opinion on GamerGate, some of them just they don't know what to do with that.
What is this? What do we do with this? Someone tell me if I'm supposed to be mad at this. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think if there were more pieces like that, oh God, that sounds so arrogant. If there were more pieces like mine, I think.
Did we get Milo on the show?
But I started my article by saying, Koretzky, that quote where he said he thinks mainstream media is partly to blame for GamerGate because of their lack of coverage.
Right.
And I think he's right. And I think if mainstream media had given GamerGate some at least somewhat decent neutral coverage, I think the flames of GamerGate where they, oh look, the media is all against us. I think those flames would have gone out a little bit, and their opinions would have been heard, and this could have been over 8 months ago.
No, I don't think it would have been over, but I would argue that we've been very, very even-handed and fair in our in anything that we cover that's even tangentially connected to them, because we know like when I write something, I know what the results are going to be when I get onto social media.
Yeah.
So I just try and do, be honest and try and be even-handed. I mean, sometimes I don't like that, but I think we've been
Please
very
be honest,
fair.
because I'm trying to win $20 from some guy on Twitter over your honesty.
Oh, that's right.
That guy's not going to give you any money.
Damn it! No one takes me up on these little challenges. Oh well. Okay, folks, that is our show for this week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and saying hey, and for making the chat an incredibly lively place. My goodness, we're not used to that. I may have to actually drag the side of that box and expand it a bit just so I can see more of the chat. So let us plug our stuff and get out of here. Andrew Eisen here, E-I-S-E-N is how you spell the last name. Plug it into YouTube to find my silly YouTube videos, of which I was going to make some today, but it's like really hot in here and no one needs to see me sweat in HD. No one needs to see that. So maybe tomorrow. Facebook is Andrew Eisen YouTube. There you go. and at Andrew is the Twitter. So, Zachary, go ahead and plug away.
All right. Just to get something out of the way, at the beginning of the show, I asked what game I should play next, and Beyond Good and Evil won with 3 votes, followed by Valkyria Chronicle with 2 and Jack and Daxter with 1. So there we go. It's Beyond Good and Evil is what I'm going to try to beat this next week. But other than that, you can follow me on Twitter at Easy Night, and you can also follow my game development work at DivineKnightGaming.com and DK_gaming on Twitter. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to do a lot of game development this week. Family issues, but other than that, I'm hoping to get back in the swing of things next week. And if you're interested in the Oklahoma game development scene, you can check out okgamedev.com and okgamedevs on Twitter. And you can also check out my new site, rustyoutlook.com, and don't take anything there too seriously. So there you go.
All right, James, go ahead.
I lost my window for a minute there. You can follow me on Twitter at jfudge, and you can watch my work on. You can check out my work on GamePolitics.com. Also, next week we're supposed to have Michael Koretzky back. I don't know if he remembers that obligation, but I will be sure to remind him this week. So that's about it.
Brad, special guest Brad. Go ahead.
I'm special. You can follow me on Twitter at Brad_Glasgow. I don't really have anything to plug. I'm after a good rest now from that article. I'm looking into what other projects interest me. So if anyone has any challenges for me, let me know. That don't really involve me looking into your opinions. I'm trying to do some hard news here. Don't ask me to look into whether or not Brianna Wu was really harassed. But if you have a good challenge for me, article-wise, let me know and I'll look into it.
All right. You've all been listening to Super Podcast Action Committee episode 154. You can send us email at superpackpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at superpackpodcast. We might be back on iTunes soon, so keep an eye out.
Soon.
And soon, yes, soon. We have a new home on, and I forgot the name. It has a K and ends in a .org. James, you remember? KNGI, something like that?
Oh man, you are horrible.
I should have written that down. I'm a bad person.
Let's see here.
KNGI.org is the new home of our show. So that is a repository of a lot of game music and game music remixes, things like that. I actually haven't listened to anything there yet, but apparently there's a lot of great stuff, including Super Podcast Action Committee. So hopefully we'll get a RSS feed and iTunes back soon. And thanks to Kyle for offering to host us. So that's it from us, and thank you much. We will see you next week. Hopefully we'll have Koretzky back on the show. Take care, y'all, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.